Perfect. Looks good. Well, hey, thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you. Thank you all so much for joining us for Transgender Day of Visibility. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Joey Caliendo. I am one half of Manal's Pride ERG lead, alongside Fran Martinez and my incredible team, who I'm very excited to introduce to you today. To get us going, I would actually like to go ahead and pass it to our event owner, Mr. Wyatt. Wyatt, can you hear us?
I definitely can. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we got you, Wyatt.
Awesome. Well, first off, I really want to thank everyone for being here. Happy Transgender Day of Visibility. This day is really, really close to my heart, being a trans man. Pronouns are he, him. So I definitely just want to say thank you so much for joining us and welcome. For us to really get started, we're going to just intro kind of what Transgender Day of Visibility is. And it's celebrated every March 31st. And really, it celebrates the achievements of transgender and gender non-conforming individuals as well. It does raise awareness of discrimination faced by our transgender people and our gender non-conforming individuals as well. And it also is going to draw attention to the work that still needs to be done to achieve justice in the community, both for transgender individuals and non-conforming individuals as well. So that's a little bit about the day, but I definitely feel like it would be an injustice if we didn't do a little bit of the history to it. So in order to get the history rolling, I am going to pass this to our lovely Gerald with his jazz hands.
Ooh, jazz hands.
Thank you so much, Wyatt. I appreciate it. So yeah, I definitely want to make sure that we kick it off. International Transgender Day of Visibility, or TDOV, was created in 2010 by trans advocate Rachel Crandall. Crandall, the head of Transgender Michigan, created TDOV in response to the overwhelming majority of media stories about transgender people being focused on violence. She hoped to create a date where people could refocus on celebrating the lives of transgender people, empowering them to live authentically, while still acknowledging that due to discrimination, not every trans person can or wants to be visible. Given that a minority of Americans say they personally know someone who's transgender, the vast majority of the public learns about trans people from the media. This is a problem because, as shown in the Netflix documentary Disclosure, the media has overwhelmingly misrepresented, mischaracterized, and stereotyped trans people since the invention of film. These false depictions have indisputably shaped the culture understanding of who trans people are and have taught the people how to react to and treat trans people in their lives. It's going to take a lot of work to undo the harm caused by these depictions. However, society is becoming more accepting as trans people feel increasingly comfortable and confident being publicly and fully themselves, and media representations of their lives begin to improve. This is especially apparent in the generational familiarity of trans people. According to Gallup, while only 30% of the general American public says they personally know a trans person, that percentage drastically varies when segmented by age. For example, 19% of Americans over 65 claim to know someone trans, while half of Americans under the age of 30 do. This isn't surprising when taking into account that 1 in 6 Gen Z adults identify as LGBTQ, according to Gallup's 2022 poll. But there has also been a growing backlash from anti-LGBTQ activists who are targeting trans people, especially children, now that marriage equality was made law in the U.S. In 2022, over 200 anti-LGBTQ bills have been filed so far, with over half specifically targeting trans people, particularly youth. This follows the 2021 as the most anti-LGBTQ legislative session in history. This hypervisibility typically comes at the expense of trans people who are demonized and scapegoated by politicians and media. That's why it's still necessary for trans people to be seen through authentic, diverse, and accurate stories to reflect the actual lived experiences of trans people, both for themselves and for those people who believe they never met a trans person. With that being said, I am going to be kicking this over to Fran.
Hi, team. Very privileged to be here today to speak to you about some trailblazers in the trans community that have really marked the way in history for this event. And so I'm going to be going over the next three trailblazers, and I want to start with Christine Jurgensen. And she was born May 30th, 1926 in Bronx, New York, assigned male at birth, but always felt more comfortable in girls' clothing. She graduated high school in 1945 and was drafted by the U.S. Army. Served as a clerical worker for 1 year in the U.S. Army, and after the war ended, she pursued a career in photography. But in her free time, she searched and researched for medical procedures to help those who felt that their gender or sexual identity did not align with society's expectations. In 1950, she traveled to Denmark for a series of surgeries and hormone treatments, beginning the process of transitioning gender identities. She chose the name Christine in honor of the surgeon, Dr. Christine Hamburger, who performed her surgery. Christine intended for her transition to remain private, but the information was leaked by an anonymous source. While she often faced offensive questioning, she embraced the attention and used it as a chance to control the narrative around transgender community and transitioning. Because of this, she often was hailed as the first openly trans celebrity and really a true trailblazer. The next person I want to introduce to you is Brandon Tina. And so Brandon was born on December 12th, 1972. Brandon was originally given the name Tina Renee Brandon at birth. Growing up, Brandon was often described as a tomboy. He highly preferred wearing masculine clothing over maybe the traditional feminine outfits. He was also using masculine names starting with Billy, but eventually settling on Brandon. Around the same time, he was also struggling with his relationship with his mother, who did not want him to explore his gender identity. Longing for a fresh start in a place where no one would know that he was trans, Brandon decided to move to Falls City region of Nebraska before his 21st birthday. While exploring the Falls City area, Brandon settled in a town called Humboldt and moved into the home of a young single mom named Lisa Lambert. Tina also befriended several locals, including John Lauder and Marvin Thomas Neeson, and began dating a 19-year-old named Lena Tisdale. However, this group soon learned that he was not a cisgender male. They became furious with Brandon over this fact. Lauder and Neeson later kidnapped and raped Brandon and threatened to kill him if he reported it to the police. Brandon reported the incident nonetheless, but the local authorities refused to take him seriously. Lauder and Neeson then broke into the home of Brandon, into the home where Brandon was actually staying. All members in the home were murdered on December 31st, 1993. The movie Boys Don't Cry was later based on Brandon's life. A super solemn story there, but the reality is things like this happen even to this day. And so we wanted to bring that story to you to show you really the dangers that people in the trans community face and overcome daily. The next person I want to talk to you about is Kai Elms. Celebrated as the first out transgender athlete in the NCAA Division I sports. Born October 23rd, 1989, and assigned female at birth. Played 3 seasons as a guard on the women's basketball team at George Washington University and was known as KK at the time. In 2010, he came out as a transgender man and stepped away from the WU basketball team. He later graduated with a bachelor's degree in fine arts, and after years of internal struggle and suicide attempts, he began traveling the world to talk about life as a transgender person. I was produced many projects, one of which was called I Am Enough, which encourages the other LGBTQ individuals to come out and talk about their experiences. The project allows individuals to submit their stories and thereby showing people who share the same issues they are not alone. In 2015, he was introduced into the National Gay and Lesbian Sports Hall of Fame. I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Sean to discuss the next trailblazer and to share with you a few insights on this next trailblazer. Sean, go ahead and take it away, man.
Cool. Thanks, friend. Well, thank you all for joining. What I want to talk to you about, or who I want to talk to you about, is Miss Laverne Cox. She is an American actress and activist. She was born on May the 29th, 1972 in Mobile, Alabama. She notably was the first openly transgender woman to be nominated for a Primetime Emmy for her role in Orange is the New Black. Cox was designated male at birth, but identified with the female gender at a very early age. She was often bullied for being considered too feminine in school. Cox attended Marymount Manhattan College in New York, where she graduated with a bachelor's degree in dance. It was while she was in college that she began to fully identify as female and started to transition medically. Cox's breakout role was her performance in Orange is in the New Black, where she played Sophia Burst, a transgender woman in prison trying to get hormone treatment. Her later credits include 2019's Charlie's Angels, 2020's Promising Young Women, and 2021's Jolt. As a popular media and cultural icon, Laverne Cox brings trans struggles to the forefront of U.S. and global mainstream news. She encourages moving beyond gender expectations to live more authentically and is the first only transgender person to appear on the cover of Time, British Vogue, Cosmopolitan, Essence, and more. Cox works very hard to amplify minority voices, especially those belonging to the LGBTQ community. In her philanthropic pursuit, Cox has raised approximately $1 million for a variety of foundations, one which supports AIDS research. In addition to her acting career, Cox has produced several television series and documentaries on transgender lives. And one of these documentaries is Netflix's Disclosure, which we would like to play a clip of. So actually, Joey, would you go ahead and get that clip going for us, please?
Sure can.
I can't even tell you how many times I've been in public space, particularly early in my transition, when I would walk into a subway car and people would just burst into laughter. And I think people are been trained to have that reaction. According to a study from GLAAD, 80% of Americans don't actually personally know someone who is transgender. So most of the information that Americans get about who transgender people are, what our lives are and are about, comes from media.
We've been around since there was footage. You just have to look for us.
Can we all just talk about D.W. Griffith for a minute? Not only is he incredibly racist, but he turned gender non-conforming people into the joke.
So it's like you can't have like queer trans people and blackness in the same space at the same time. So what's it say about my queer trans black ass? They've died so many times they can't even count on camera.
I've been a prostitute 1, prostitute 2, call girl, hooker.
The crying game created a ripple effect.
You are a trans person who existed, made people physically ill. Was the way in which my favorite movie as a child ended.
There are lots of ugly things about our history, but I think we have to know them.
I have been beaten. I have been thrown in jail for gay liberation. And you all treat me this way?
There is a one-word solution to almost all the problems in trans media. We just need more. And that way, the occasional clumsy representation wouldn't matter as much because it wouldn't be all that there is.
You see a fierceness that's coming up now. That's because we ain't got nothing to lose.
These are my sisters up here, but the struggle is real.
The ways in which trans people have been represented have suggested that we're mentally ill, that we don't exist. And yet here we are, and we've always been here.
Well, very powerful stuff. And next, I would like to introduce to you our next trailblazer, Jackson Bird. Jackson Bird is an American vlogger, speaker, LGBTQ advocate, and writer. He's actually the author of the 2022 memoir Sorted, which is subtitled Growing Up, Coming Out, and Finding My Place. Jackson has dedicated his life to demystifying the transgender experience and has been a staunch advocate of the community ever since. Assigned female at birth, Jackson grew up in Texas in the 90s, which was very difficult for him. He felt he never really truly had a trans role model to help guide him through the emotions of exploring his gender identity. In 2015, Jackson came out in a very public fashion as he had an incredibly large online following. And from that day, Jackson made it a goal of his to be that role model that he never had. And rather than me speaking on behalf of Jackson, I'd actually like to share this incredibly powerful TED Talk from Jackson himself.
Hi, I'm Jack, and I'm transgender. Let me take a guess at some of the thoughts that might be running through your head right now. Transgender, wait, does that mean that they're actually a man or actually a woman? Wonder if he's had the surgery yet. Oh, now I'm looking at his crotch. Look to the right, that's a safe place to look. Yes, I knew it. No real man has hips like those. My friend's daughter is transgender. I wonder if they know each other. Oh my gosh, he is so brave. I would totally support his right to use the men's bathroom. Wait, but how does he use the bathroom? How does he have sex? Okay, let's stop those hypothetical questions before we get too close for my comfort. I mean, don't get me wrong, I did come here today to share my personal experiences being transgender, but I did not wake up this morning wanting to tell an entire audience about my sex life. I mean, of course, that's the problem with being trans, right? People are pretty much always wondering how we have sex and what kind of equipment we're working with below the belt. Being trans is awkward. And not just because the gender I was assigned at birth mismatches the one I really am. Being trans is awkward because everyone else gets awkward when they're around me. You know, people who support me and all other trans people wholeheartedly are often so scared to say the wrong thing, so embarrassed to not know what they think they should, that they never ask. And part of what was so nerve-wracking about coming out as transgender was knowing that people wouldn't know what I meant. And when someone comes out as gay, people know what that means. But when you come out as trans, you have to face the misconceptions that will color other people's impressions of you even after you've educated them. And you will have to educate them. When I came out, I wrote a 10-page encyclopedic document with a zip file attachment of music and videos that I sent to every single person I came out to. And I kept in my email signature for months afterwards, because you also don't ever stop coming out. And I came out to the accountant helping with my taxes and the TSA agents who didn't know which one of them should pat me down, the man or the woman. I mean, I just came out to everyone watching this. When I came out to my dad, to my great relief, he was totally cool with me being trans. But as soon as I started talking about physically transitioning, he freaked. And I quickly realized it was because he, like so many other people, think that physical transition means just one thing: the surgery. Now listen, if there were one magical surgery that could turn me into a tall, muscular, societally perfect image of a man overnight, I'd sign up in a heartbeat. Unfortunately, it isn't that simple. There are dozens of different gender-affirming surgeries, from chest surgeries to bottom surgeries to facial feminization and man sculpting. Many trans people will only ever undergo one procedure in their lifetime, if that. Maybe because they don't personally feel the need, but also because they're expensive, and health insurance is only beginning to cover them. Instead, the first step for a trans person seeking physical transition is usually hormone replacement therapy. Hormones are why I have a deeper voice and some sparse whiskers on my neck and a giant pimple on my chin. Basically, they put you through a second puberty. It's a blast. Now, because our transitions are slower and steadier than historic misconceptions can lead people to believe, there can be some confusion about when to call someone by their new name and pronouns. There's no distinct point in physical transition at which a trans person becomes their true gender. As soon as they tell you their new name and pronouns, that's when you start using that name and pronouns. And I know it can be difficult to make the change. You might slip up here and there. I've slipped up myself with other trans people. But I always think to myself, if we can change from calling Puff Daddy to P. Diddy, and if we apologize profusely when we've used the wrong gender pronoun for someone's pet cat, I think we can make the same effort for the real humans in our lives. Now, there is no topic that makes other people more awkward about trans people than public bathrooms. The bathrooms, the latest political flashpoint for LGBT opponents. Here's a fun fact about bathrooms. More U.S. congressmen have been convicted of assaulting someone in a public bathroom than trans people have been. Now, the truth is, we trans people are so much more scared of you than you are of us. It is a huge point of discussion in trans communities about which bathroom to start using and when, so we don't attract attention that could lead to violence against us. I personally started using the men's room when I started getting confused and frightened looks in the women's room, even though I was petrified to start going into the men's room. And often we opt to just not go to the bathroom at all. A 2015 national survey of trans people found that 8% of us had had a urinary tract infection in the past year as a result of avoiding restrooms. These bathroom bills aren't protecting anyone. All they're doing is ensuring that when trans people are assaulted in bathrooms, the law will no longer be on our side when we report it. Being trans means a daily onslaught of these misconceptions. And I have it pretty easy. I am a white, able-bodied guy sitting nearly at the peak of Privilege Mountain. For non-binary people, for trans women, for trans people of color, it is so much harder. So I've given you a starter pack of trans knowledge that I hope will lead to more learning on your own. Talk to trans people. Listen to us. Amplify our voices. Take the heat off of us and educate those around you so we don't have to every time. Maybe someday when I say, "Hi, I'm Jack, and I'm transgender," the only response I'll get is, "Hi, nice to meet you." Thank you.
And I really love that TED Talk. I think it's really cool that we spent some time learning about and hearing from some famous icons in the trans community. Something we wanted to do that was a little bit different this year as opposed to some of the events Manal has had in the past. We wanted to actually open up and hear some stories from some of the folks that we love the most here locally at Manal. To kick us off, I'm going to pass it back to Sean.
Awesome. Thanks, Joey. Hi again, everyone. My name is Sean Gallegos, and I am a senior rep here in Closed Loop, Albuquerque, Manal. But even more important, I'm a very proud parent of a 16-year-old transgender son. I wanted to share a story with you guys today. It's a story about both mine and my son's lives and a little bit of the transition. It's going to start off when my then daughter, her name was Sage, was 6 years old. She drew a family picture at school. I think she was in kindergarten or first grade, and she brought it home. At first look, it was really cute. You know, it was stick figures of her dad, her mom, her sister. But then there was a picture of another stick figure, right? So at that point in time, I was just like, first of all, thanks for drawing me skinny, right? That was my first thing when I saw the picture. But second of all, I was like, who is this extra person? And I thought to myself, I was like, well, you know, it has to be Sage's imaginary friend, right? Or I don't know, maybe that monster that she's afraid of under her bed. Who knows? But it's who knows who it is. So at that point in time, I just thought it was interesting. I thought it was funny. So I posted it on Facebook, you know, got a bunch of likes here or there, but never thought anything different. So fast forward 9 years later, Joey, can you put up a slide for me, please? 9 years later, Facebook reminds me of a picture that I had posted. So I looked at it and I said, oh yeah, that picture, right? I looked at it again, and if you can see, you know, there I am on the left. Me, that's Sage. Jordan is in the middle. Mia is her sister, and then her mom. Well, what I realized was Jordan is my son now. So when Jordan was 6 years old, Jordan knew who Jordan was. I didn't think anything of it when this picture was drawn. But as a parent, when Jordan came to me and said that he wanted to be transgender, I had never met a transgender person. I didn't know, I mean, I knew what it was to be transgender, but as a father, I was kind of, you know, shocked, of course. And I thought to myself, well, there's something I did. Is there something I could have done? Like, what? I didn't know, right? And that's absolutely normal for a parent of a transgender person. But when I saw this picture, I already accepted Jordan. I've always loved Jordan. But when I saw this picture, it made me realize, man, Jordan was always Jordan. Deep down inside, at 6 years old, and he was probably Jordan prior to 6 years old. But what I wanted to get across is no matter what, Jordan's going to be Jordan. He was Jordan then, Jordan's Jordan now, and Jordan will always be Jordan. And I will always love Jordan, no matter what. And I loved Sage as Sage, and I love Jordan now. But what I really wanted to get across is, as a parent of a transgender, just make sure, what I've always said is, I need to be my son's biggest ally. I need to advocate for him, because there's not too many people out there that does. So I just wanted to share my story with you guys. I thought it was really cool that Facebook, of all things, make this story possible for me. But it's just really cool. Like I said, I thought it was an imaginary friend. I thought it was a monster. But you know what it was? It was Jordan being Jordan at 6 years old. So I hope you enjoyed my story. And I just wanted to pass this back on to Wyatt. So thank you, guys. Oh, real quick. That is a picture of my son, Jordan. Very proud papa on his first ROTC performance. But like I said, I'm going to always love my son. I'm going to always love Jordan. And I just wanted to pass this back on to Wyatt. So Wyatt, it's all yours, buddy.
Thank you so much. And honestly, I love that story. It honestly just makes me think so much of earlier journeys and really kind of finding it within myself. So, once again, it's back to me. As I stated earlier at the beginning of this, I'm a transgender man. I'm very open about my transition, which hasn't always been easy. And today, I really kind of want to share that journey with you and how that's all kind of just accumulated. So on the slide in front of you, we've got a pre-T photo of me. Pre-T, T is testosterone. We commonly refer to it as T because testosterone just kind of gets tongue-tied overall. So my wife is the one in the scarf. That was Thanksgiving of back in 2019. And I'm the one on the left with the long hair. So then that second photo is coming out. And as Jackson Bird said, we never stop coming out. We come out to everyone. Every job that I have, I'm always coming out. So, but that was the first weekend. And I remember it because it was Easter weekend. So of course I had my pink pastel-y shirt on, I had just cut my hair. I was really feeling myself. It was also the same weekend that I put in my prescription for testosterone to start hormone replacement therapy. Fast forward a year later, that is me. I'm getting ready to go swim. It took me a whole year to get into a swimming pool because how do you do that? I hadn't had surgery. People kind of look at you weird. And I will tell you, in that photo, I had some chin whiskers right here on my jaw. I was like feeling my beard. I thought it was awesome. So that was 1 year in. Kind of fast forwarding there to that second photo, or I guess fourth photo, however you want to count it, is 2 years. I am in an Arizona Department of Corrections uniform. I worked corrections in the prison, and as a transgender man, I can tell you that was awful, great, a mixture of everything. Surprisingly enough, my inmates were more accepting of me than my officers were, but I really kind of want to touch base on the bathroom situation there. That was the only place I had someone pay attention to how I went into a bathroom stall, the way that my feet were placed in a bathroom stall, and already having anxiety for that. I don't look at bathrooms the same way. So, working in prison was a trip. Let's just leave it there. Moving on to that last picture on this slide, it is 3 years on testosterone. And I look pretty similar to what I do now. Light beard, definitely grew in more here. My voice at that point in time was pretty deep to what it is now. Moving up to that second puberty, for all my guys out there, your voice cracks off and on, always. And it still happens. Even on some phone calls that I take with T-Mobile, my voice cracks in the middle of it. It's quite delightful. I do kind of want to give a warning before the next slide. The next slide is going to outline my top surgery and the process with that. So if anyone is kind of a little weird with scars or incisions, things of that nature, I definitely just want to let you know that's going to be on the next slide. Joey, if you don't mind moving towards that. So top surgery, the pinnacle moment for every single trans guy, because now we can go into the pool, we can walk around, we can tan, we can do things, you know what I mean? So on the left, I had my top surgery that's got drains in. You're also seeing the yellow. Those were covering my nipples that basically, again, sorry if this is graphic for anyone. It was taken off of my body with a pair of scissors, and it was then stapled back onto my body. And so with that, they really had to cover it and keep it moist. The drains were because, since my body was very used to having fluid go throughout there, it was trying to pump that out and teach my body, hey, we don't have that anymore. Typically for top surgery, they do recommend that most trans men wait about a year on hormone replacement therapy, but you can do it at any point in time. The second photo there that's also top surgery is maybe about a week, would you say? Sorry, I look at my wife. She's in the same room with me. She was my caregiver during this. About a week later, and the nipples had stayed on. That was definitely a fear. Full sensation came back, but it did leave me with a 24-inch scar across my entire torso that I do get to look at every day, which in my mind, it's like a battle scar. I am so proud of it. I will show anyone that scar if they want to ask me about it. Anytime anyone's like, oh, you're trans, I'm like, let me lift my shirt up and show you, because I am just so proud that I was able to achieve that. The other thing I wanted to point out in that last photo is that is the first ever photo I posted on my social media, Snapchat, Instagram, and Facebook, and it was huge. I'd never posted something that even remotely put me in that kind of nude, if you will, category. So this was definitely I'm feeling myself. I got a nice beard. I got my surgery, and that was it. So now I am about next on Easter in a couple weeks here, going to be 4 years on testosterone, celebrating my first surgery that I had in November. And so that's kind of my journey. I mean, it's such a brief overview. And for those that are on my team that are watching, or those that are in the closed loop community with me here at Manal, understand that there's so much more from little stories I have shared. But I wanted to share with everyone here today that sees this, my journey. And kind of moving into the next thing that I wanted to do is a question and answer. I would love to have you guys type out your questions, and I would love to answer them from my perspective. I'd love for Sean to answer them from his perspective as a parent. No question is going to offend me at all. I don't care what you guys want to ask about. I just want to educate 100%. It's a common idea that all those trailblazers shared. They all were about embracing that misinformation. So with that, I want to open it up to questions. If anyone has any, please type it out there. Let us know.
I'll watch the chat for questions, and for anybody who'd like to come off of mute, and whether you ask questions or share thoughts, we really thought it'd be important for us to come together as a community and really share our thoughts, our emotions, our feelings, and just make sure that we all continue to educate and support each other. So please, by all means.
Okay. Thoughts on the trans athlete issues, particularly within public schools. From my perspective, it is discouraging to tell kids that they can't play games, especially any athletic performance. And I do understand, in my case, as a transgender man, female to male, I would be at a disadvantage to go play with boys. I don't have the musculature. I don't have the same testosterone development, even 4 years. It's just not something I have. I could see the other way for our trans sisters, how they biologically think that, but at the end of the day, it really comes down to, do you have the heart and the skill and the drive to train in this profession and the sport that you love? I think it should be open to everyone. I don't really think that it should be labeled as anything bad. That's my personal opinion. That does not have to be yours. And if you guys differ, I would love to hear it. Anyone on the Pride DE&I, if you guys have something that you would like to say with that, please chime in. We keep getting them. Okay. Let's see. And Hyler, thank you so much. I never said your name. I appreciate that. So it looks like, Rochelle, are there any allyship practices that are too much or more harmful than they are helpful? No, there aren't. I think the only allyship that I get that might be the most annoying from my perspective is anytime I tell someone I'm trans and they go, oh, well, my sister's cousin's boyfriend is gay, so you guys must be friends. that one kind of just limits our community and makes us look smaller. And so that, I think, would be on the borderline of annoying, but definitely not harmful. I love when people are open. I love when people embrace it. So I don't think there's allyship that's out there that's too much, especially nowadays with how hostile being trans can be. It 1,000% is just, nothing that's too harmful. So thank you.
Hey, Wyatt, real quick, can I add something that really spoke to me from Disclosure?
Yes, absolutely.
So throughout that trailer, there was a comment that was made that representation, especially in the media, is so important because it helps to minimize those clumsy moments of poorly accurate or poorly articulated representation or poor attempts at allyship that may come across not quite the way that we intend. So I really love that we're doing this event because I feel like it helps to close those gaps. It helps to create real, genuine interpretations and representation. That way we all can understand, hey, allyship is allyship. And if it comes from a place of positivity and love, there's nothing that could be interpreted as harmful if it's genuine. At least that's my thought.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Joey. I appreciate that. The next question was from Adria. What would you say your biggest fear for the future is? Oh boy. If anyone has watched the news, and the tragic events that unfolded there in Nashville, it's now bringing the trans community into heat. And there's been a lot of debate, both from the political side of things, the social aspect of things. So really, when I think towards the future, I just think it's the common misconceptions that are going to keep going on. My fear isn't just for me. I am a husband. I am a dad, and I look both my wife and my son have chimed in listening to this. And I look at him and I worry for the world he has to grow up in. Will he be hindered because he has a trans father? Do I have to continue to hide for his benefit, for my wife's benefit? He's a Boy Scout. Is that going to hinder him when I take him to events? So my fear is just the misconception and the constant ostracization, if that is a word at all, that I will face. Does anyone else? I mean, Sean, you're a dad. What's your biggest fear?
Well, first of all, my biggest fear as a parent is of a parent of a transgender or a non-transgender is exactly what you said, the fear of the world that we're growing up in. I fear every day for my son's life, just because of the simple fact that the whole world's not as accepting as a lot of us are. But what I really tend to thrive off of are people like everyone on this panel, everyone that's listening, and education. Whether you are or know someone that's trans, if you're an ally, all it is the education. Teach your kids. All you can do is teach your own kids, right? We can't teach anyone else's kids, but teach your kids or your family members, your nieces, your nephews, the value of having a heart, of loving people for who they are. So I know I got off the subject a little bit of what I fear, but I really think that's what we have to do as a community is we have to educate and we have to be diverse. And it all starts at home, whether it's LGBTQ, anything. If you teach your kids to love anybody, no matter what, that's how they're going to grow up to be. But like I said, I fear the same thing as any other parent fears. It's the world itself. This world's not the best place, but all we can do is try to make it better day by day.
Absolutely. And I think that was kind of a perfect transition. Kind of scrolling up here, getting lost. Kendra had asked, the anti-trans bills passing around us. You're scared for your kids, your wife is a trans woman, and your son who has come out as gay. So what can we do to combat this? Sean was on the money with that. We need to unite. We need to teach our kids to grow up accepting. We need to challenge that misconception that's out there. And I'm not saying for everyone to be open with their journeys, because that does put a target on your back. But we need to share it. We need to get the information out there and make it aware. Because if we don't spread that info and that just knowledge, all we're doing is breeding hate and ignorance. And I just want to stop that right now for our safe, for your family's safe, Kendra, for my son's, for Sean's safety. I just want to get that out there. And that's why this event was huge to me and why I wanted to do it in a Q&A format, to just get it out there, because maybe you know someone that's trans, maybe you yourself lack the knowledge to understand what it is like, and you just want to know. And this is a safe place to do that. So Kind of moving on. I'm so sorry. There are so many questions. I didn't anticipate this. So if I don't get to them all, I do apologize. Looks like from John Martinez, it was there any specific support or guidance for your partner after coming out as trans to them? Oh, there's that smile. When I came out, I was really afraid. My background is my parents were not accepting. My family was not accepting. So growing up, I was a very conservative, Baptist ran house. So I got Bible belted really hard. So when I just didn't feel comfortable, I had actually married my wife as a woman. And she had told me, hey, how about we try some pronouns behind closed doors that are safe for you? I was like, absolutely. And I mean, literally, I think it was a day, 2 days, maybe the weekend. And I was ready to roll. That was it. That was my coming out weekend that we decided that, and it kind of all did it at once. So the specific support or guidance for your partner after coming out as trans is just communication and patience. That was all that I needed. That was all that she needed. It's by no means an easy journey, especially going with someone that goes through a second puberty, the hormone swings, but communication, patience, and love, which I mean is almost what you need for any healthy relationship, whether you choose to be of LGBT or not. So that was definitely, and I hope I'm answering all your guys' questions in a way that makes it feel like it's answered. If not, please reach out to me on Slack or something. I'd love to continue it. Anyone else have, Sean, do you have anything for your, being that communication between son and dad? I mean, it's not exactly partners, but it is a family dynamic. Do you have anything to add on that?
Well, first of all, just because my son is transgender doesn't mean it takes away from him being a teenager. So communication is very difficult.
Yes.
I still got the same. I always have to remember, just because he's transgender, just because he's a teenager, it all works the same, right? Communication. And the thing is, like, letting my son know on a daily basis that I'm here for him, and that that nothing even matters to me anymore in terms of sexuality, gender, whatever. It's, father-son relationship. Also, he knows that I slip. There's times where I still call him Sage. If I'm yelling at him, Sage, Jordan. Or, he, she, I slip. And there's the communication with that is like, hey, knows that I'm doing that. We're respecting his wishes. But at the same time, for how many years of my life was that my daughter, my Sage, it's difficult, but it's a learning process. And it just, communication is key, right? Just like you said, in any loving relationship. And at the same time, just making them feel good about themselves. That takes a lot. As a parent to a child, just let them know that what they're doing is right and that you love them. That's basically it.
Absolutely. I know that the chat's been going, and I love that everyone's chiming in. This is one from Catherine, who I know is Gabby, so I'm going to go ahead and say Gabby. What tips do you have when sharing info about transgender with kids? I never, ever want to tell a parent how to parent on any issue. You guys know your kids best. You know what information is going to be provided for them. When I did it with my son, because like I said, I married my wife as a woman, and he is my stepson, although there's no step to it. I walked into his room, and he was 6 at the time. And I sat down on the bed with him, and I said, hey, I don't feel comfortable in my body, and I want to switch. I want to be a boy. I think it'd be cool. We could be boys together, but I don't want to do it if you're not comfortable, because he's my son. He's going to come first and foremost. And he absolutely said, well, I kind of thought he was my dad already, so I guess that's fine. And since then, biggest advocate. And he's got the biggest grin on there because I think he does remember that event, don't you, buddy? Yeah. And he's been my biggest advocate, even when people were getting my pronouns wrong. His great-great-grandma, who is 84, would get it wrong because that's age-related. And he'd go, Grandma, that's my dad. So kids, you know them best. You know what their maturity level is. I would just be open and honest with it. I wouldn't try to sugarcoat anything. Again, breeding that correct conception and information to send them out into the world to be most loving to everyone. So that's kind of my tip there. If you need more pointers or you have questions, I do have other nieces, nephews, cousins that are all under age 10 that we did explain it to, and I'm more than happy to get with you and explain that if that's something you're interested in. Sean, how do you feel about that when it comes to sharing it with kids?
Well, I think honesty, and of course, depending on whose kids and, the parents and things like that. But they're like we had talked about earlier, some transgender people don't want to be outed as transgender. Some do. In my case with my son, he wanted to be here today, as a matter of fact, to join us, but unfortunately that couldn't happen. But, just being very honest and explain them. I mean, we don't have to explain to them like they're adults, but, if they have a question, like friends of the family that knew Sage is Sage, right? And then all of a sudden there was one day where people that had always known Sage, who had no clue that Sage was going to transition or what have you, had to be, hey. And all I did is said, hey guys, Sage is now Jordan. We really like to we really would like the respect and to try as hard as you can. And I always, like I said, make sure that it is understood that slip-ups are okay, forgetting is okay, using the wrong pronouns is okay, using the wrong name is okay. And I explain that, especially talking with children. Like I said, friends, children, I'll have to say, hey, so-and-so, remember Sage? Sage, well, now Sage is Jordan. Jordan is now a boy, and he likes to be called Jordan. So try your hardest. And you know what? I didn't have any problems with that. I think children adapt a lot faster and a lot quicker and with open hearts than adults do. To this day and going forward, my parents, they have a very, very hard time, not a hard time accepting, but a hard time remembering that Jordan is no longer Sage and that he is no longer she and that their granddaughter is no longer their grandson. And they try their ultimate hardest, but they slip. So addressing it is, I think, going back to the question, is being honest. And once again, understanding that perfection is not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a while.
Absolutely. So thank you. Kind of moving on to that next question was, as adults, from Pete, how can we handle misconceptions about trans people in everyday conversation if we are cis? No different than any trans person or cis person. That doesn't matter. You know the information and what's correct, and you know how to correct that. If you come up across a misconception that you know 100% that you can correct, I would hope on my behalf that you would go ahead and do that. And I kind of wanted to circle back here to Sean when it came about pronouns. It's okay to mess up. When I first started transitioning, that first coming out, I'm sure a lot of people had problems identifying, am I a boy or am I a lesbian that's masculine? A lot of times I got called ma'am. It sucked. But in their eyes, they're getting it correct. They're using ma'am. They're being respectful. I can't be mad at that. You don't know. And I could correct you, but why? You're being nice. You're saying, yes, ma'am, thank you. Have a great day. Okay. It's kind of, I'm at the beginning of my transition. It's just what happens. That's my own personal journey. No one else has that. If you feel the need to correct it, by all means do it. But slip-ups are okay. We just appreciate that you try. We just appreciate that you're asking, that you're like, what are your preferred pronouns? And that is something that if you don't know how to ask that, no one's going to get offended by that. You walk up to them, a non-binary individual, you're not sure how to address them. Hey, what are your preferred pronouns? They're just going to be happy you asked. You took an interest in them, in their lifestyle. We're 9 times out of 10 going to tell you, oh, hey, my pronouns are he, him. Thank you so much. And probably respond with what are yours, just so we can be polite and get it right. At least I know I do. So kind of taking it back to those misconceptions, just if you come across one, please correct it for our sake. And I got asked a question here about how T-Mobile has been a part of my journey and support to us both. I've actually been excited for this one. I'm really happy to share this journey. Like I said prior, I worked in the prison system in Arizona and in New Mexico. I worked up at the state pen in Santa Fe, if anyone's familiar with that. And I did have a problem up in Santa Fe where HR was not confidential with my medical records and my everything. And that ultimately led to some problems that I had. So when I got to T-Mobile, I was terrified. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. I'm just 1,000% going to be open and we're going to see what happens. And T-Mobile embraced me with amazing love and care. the Mels that are my managers, Melanie and Melissa, you guys have been phenomenal. Julian, my coach, has been amazing. Jessica, Sean, you all have just gone above and beyond for me, especially when I was out with surgery. I didn't know how that was going to, react. I went from being out to coming back to going, I need half days, to going, my arms don't work, to crying, to being off my hormones. And they all just took it so well. And it was never a problem. And anyone I've come across, my entire team, I know a couple of them are watching. Kat, I know you're out there. I know you guys have just done your absolute best to be interested in my journey, be accepting, be loving, be all about it. So T-Mobile has given me above and beyond support that I could never have imagined, that has made my work environment safe. I've never felt scared in the bathroom after my first week. I never was like, oh my gosh, is anyone paying attention to my feet again? So T-Mobile has created a warm and welcoming environment. Plus, the benefits are a nice perk that it does cover gender affirming care. So I'm just going to throw that out there if it can come across that I would love to keep gender affirming care. So just know that. But T-Mobile has been great. So definitely. And Sean, T-Mobile's been so supportive of you, I'm assuming, but I would love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, 100%. I've been at T-Mobile 20 years now, so T-Mobile saw my child grow up. And like I said, everyone here knew Sage as Sage when Sage was Sage. And just the acceptance, the amazing people here at this call center that I don't even have to explain to them. I didn't have to explain anything. All I have to do is say, hey guys, Sage is now Jordan. And then even after COVID, people are like, oh, hey, how are your daughters? And I say, oh, you know what? They're fine, but I don't have 2 daughters anymore. I have a daughter and a son. And I get the look like, huh? What? You had another kid during COVID? No. My daughter transitioned, and I've never, ever gotten a look of despair, a look of, sadness. It's just like, oh, cool, right on, cool. If they see me outside of work, they've always acknowledged Jordan as Jordan, or at least tried, or things like that. So mine isn't as much of like, financial or help. It's just the support. The community here at T-Mobile has been nothing but supportive of myself and my son, which just shows how open and amazing the people at T-Mobile are. And I thank my lucky stars for that every day. My son knows everyone here is accepting of him. Like I said, when I told him what I was doing, what you were doing, Wyatt, he was so happy. Wyatt is going to take some time to meet with my son and hopefully be a mentor. So just amazing stuff like that. We're a community here. If any of you guys that are listening or are going to pass this down to anyone have transgender children or are thinking of transitioning themselves or just want to talk, Wyatt and I are here. All of the Pride, all of D&I, we're all here for you guys. And we love sharing our story. As you can tell, we could probably talk for hours and hours and hours at them because it's something that I think Wyatt and I are both very, very proud of. I am proud to say that I'm a parent of a transgender son. In this day and age, I want to be a role model and I want to be an advocate, and I want everyone to hear how much I love my son and how much I love trans people and how much I love everybody. So yes, the community is amazing. T-Mobile is amazing.
Absolutely. And with that, I know we are running short on time. If you have questions that you didn't want to post in the chat for fear of anything, please reach out to me. You can find me on Slack. I did mention I've got the socials. It's under Wyatt Keltner. Definitely I've got the trans flag in there. So if you see that, you've got the right guy. If you have any questions for anyone or someone and you just want to refer them to a safe place, please, by all means, I just want everyone to feel loved and accepted and like it's possible and doable. So I do want to throw that out there, okay?
Thank you so much, Wyatt and Sean. I think the incredible thing about DE&I and the community that we've built here is the ability to be vulnerable in a safe space. So thank you both for sharing your stories. And thank you to everybody who asked questions and came from a place of curiosity and love. Just a couple of quick things that I'll call out before I hand it over to our amazing ERG sponsor, Art. First things first, everybody who has attended today will be entered. We have a couple of books that we'll be giving away. So be on the lookout for that. On top of that, Wyatt came up with the amazing idea to offer pronoun pins. So anybody who is on site, if you would like to rock a pronoun pin, they will be at my desk. The last plug that I would like to make, we talk a lot about resources. I think we've talked a lot about mental health throughout this event as well. Never forget the resource Live Magenta. I think there are a lot of valuable things and a lot of valuable services that can be there. So again, just please make sure that you're aware. But to close this out, I'd love to hand it off to the amazing Art.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you, Wyatt, and the entire Pride and Allies team, just for pulling this together. What an incredible event. As we close out the event, I think it's important for us to really reflect on the progress that we've made, but also the work that still needs to be done. Today, we've celebrated diversity, resilience, the strength of the transgender and gender nonconforming people, but we also need to continue to recognize the challenges that they're continuing to face. Just this morning, I was reading the news and I saw that there's been nearly 600 anti-LGBTQ bills that have been filed by state houses across the country. That is so disheartening, and it just shows how much work that needs to be done still. It's vital that we continue to create safe spaces, opportunities for transgender and gender nonconforming individuals, so that they can be seen, heard, and celebrated. We must also commit to advocating for their rights, including access to healthcare, education, employment, and just ending the discrimination and violence that they're continuing to experience. Thank you guys for the stories that you shared today. I mean, it's just so, it's such a beautiful, both of you have such beautiful stories, and I just want you both to know that we're here for you as your network and as your family here at T-Mobile. And I think together, we can make great things happen in this world, because we just have to stick together and stick up for each other. So appreciate you all for being on this call. To the allies, thank you for standing by all members of the LGBTQ community, and just for everything that you do to support. So back to you, Joey. Thank you all.
Hey, thanks so much, Art. We really appreciate you. With that said, I'd like to thank you all again for joining us. Be on the lookout for emails for our raffle. Again, if you'd like a pronoun pin, come see me. Otherwise, we hope you all have a wonderful and safe rest of your day and a happy weekend. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye, everyone.